Okay, so Rand Paul, who's the senator for Kentucky, he was recently on The View, and he said something ridiculous, which made the whole audience laugh at him. And he also said something else, which we'll discuss in a second. All right, let's take a look.
Got a book out, The Case Against Socialism. You know, Bernie Sanders is no longer alone on the debate stage. It seems like we're hearing more and more about socialism. In fact, 43% of Americans think it's a good thing. You are on the complete other end of that. Tell us about this book.
Well, one of the things we learned in writing the book is a lot of people say, well, we're not for Stalin, we're not for Hitler, we're for Scandinavia. So as we were researching the book, we actually found that Bernie Sanders' form of socialism actually is unpopular, and he would never get elected to anything in Denmark. In fact, the Prime Minister of Denmark, when he heard Bernie was going around saying they were socialists, says, no, we're not socialists. We have private property, a stock exchange, we have low corporate income taxes, we don't have a minimum wage. And the big difference, and this is where the big lie comes from, Bernie says we're going to give you all this free stuff, but we're only going to tax the rich people. In Scandinavia, they tax the working class, 25% sales tax, and an income tax starting at $60,000 is 60%. So really the difference between their country and our country is they do have more free stuff in Scandinavia, but they pay for it with massive taxes on the working class and the middle class.
But we have massive taxes here, but we don't get any free stuff. We don't have free health care. Well, our public education system is a problem. It seems like the only people that get free stuff are the very, very wealthy.
We have a different form of taxation in our country. Ours is much more progressive. So we've taken the poor off of the rolls. They don't pay income tax anymore. Most people below $50,000 don't pay any income tax. The top 1% in our country pay 40%.
Our audience says that's not true.
Well, the IRS statistics say that the top 1% in our country pay 40% of the income tax, and that those making less than $50,000.
Donald Trump doesn't pay any income tax.
Let me ask you this, because
Where do we start, man? Look, most people in the audience, they were laughing because he said that people who earn under 50K a year don't pay any taxes. Now, look, I'm not trying to defend Rand Paul here. I don't agree with anything he said, but I think what he was trying to say, and he formulated it really badly, was that if you look at the total sum of money that the IRS receives, okay, from federal taxes, only a small portion comes from people who earn 50K or less a year. I think that's what he's saying. But this argument is nonsensical. I don't know why he made it in the first place. Just because low-income people only make up a small percentage of all taxes doesn't mean that this burden is not heavier on them. Okay, someone who has billions of dollars and pays 20% in income tax or federal taxes or combined taxes is not going to feel it as hard as someone who's earning 50K a year. He's trying to virtue signal that, oh, we the rich, we the 1%, most of the federal taxes come from our money. Yeah, but you're living comfortably and you're privileged. It doesn't hurt you as much as it hurts low-income people. Not to mention that you are distracting people from the fact that you don't pay your fair share. You are still not paying your fair share. Amazon, Netflix are paying $0 in federal income tax. This is obscene. How do you justify that? What I am going to address is the socialism point that he made. I mean, this is just embarrassing. Look, man, I'm all for criticizing socialism, communism. Sure, you want to criticize those systems? Please do. I welcome healthy debate. But anyone who tells you that this is the definition of socialism, stop listening to them because they don't know what they're talking about. There is no such thing as socialism, singular. There are socialisms, plural, all right? Socialism in Venezuela is not the same as socialism in Denmark. It's not the same as socialism, as Arab socialism in the Middle East. These are different systems, and they mean different things by those systems, okay? Capitalism in Saudi Arabia is not the same as capitalism in Australia or America. Do you understand? Different people mean different things by those terms, all right? Just like if you want, Christianity is not the same in America as it is in Greece or Armenia. It's not the same thing. So anyone who tells you that there's one broad definition for all of them is a complete idiot and is ignorant of history and just shouldn't be talking about that. You know, this isn't a defense of socialism or communism. I'm making a point about historical accuracy. Okay, so you want to debate socialism, communism? Sure. But please be accurate with your definitions because it's infuriating and it's so historically ignorant. Okay, you have multiple kinds of socialism. One version argues that private property should stay private property. If you own a company, then keep your company, but the government is going to regulate the market. That's one kind of socialism. The other kind of socialism is when the government comes in and takes ownership. They expropriate and they nationalize the industries. This is also sometimes known as communism. Okay, so after the revolution in 1917, after they took over the country and nationalized everything, they wanted to differentiate themselves from the socialists who want to allow private property to continue. So they call themselves communists. Okay, so it's not the same thing. And then you have a third kind of socialism, which isn't interested in regulating the market and nationalizing industries. It's more interested in the workplace, in having worker co-ops, in making the workplace a democracy. Okay, so the majority of the workers take the decisions about what we produce, how we produce it, how we distribute the wealth. So you already have three kinds of socialisms right there, not to mention how they differentiate in the Middle East, in Latin America, in Europe, in America. So please, I mean, for just for the sake of history, for the sake of accuracy, please know what you're talking about. It's not about defending socialism or communism. No, it's about history. It's about, let's please be accurate when we start political debates. Because in the end, it's really embarrassing, okay? I mean, even when you talk about socialized programs like universal healthcare, dude, the healthcare system in the UK is not the same as the healthcare system in France, is not the same as the Bismarckian system in Germany. These are different things. Yes, they're socialized programs, but they work and operate differently. And the people who say these kinds of things, who make blanket statements like, oh, this is the definition of socialism, these are the same kinds of people who say that the Nazis were socialists because they had the word socialism in the name. I mean, this is the pinnacle of stupidity, you know? I mean, it's like saying buffalo wings come from real buffaloes because they have the word buffalo in the name. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? This is just historically, economically, politically false. Okay, there are different kinds of socialisms, plural, and if you want to criticize them, please do by all means, but say which one you are talking about so we don't think that you are an idiot. Thank you. And then what he's implying here is that Bernie Sanders is post-capitalist? What? What are you talking about? Bernie Sanders has never said that I'm going to take away all privately owned property and nationalize and expropriate everything. When did he say that? That's not what he's running on. The stock exchange? When did Bernie Sanders say he wants to close down the stock exchange? This guy is flat out lying. This is literally a lie. It's not a question of, oh, I don't like Bernie Sanders or I disagree with Bernie Sanders. No, he's never said that or indicated that. Where does it say on his platform that he wants to nationalize and take over all privately owned property? Bernie Sanders is not a communist. To be honest, Bernie Sanders is not even a socialist. Most communists and socialists think Bernie Sanders is too soft for them. Okay? They think he's too center for them. I mean, this is American politics. What do you expect? When both main parties are on the right, this is what happens. They end up calling a centrist like Bernie Sanders a communist. I mean, this is laughable, you know? This is really a joke. It's so comical. It's unbelievable. So he's saying that Bernie Sanders is post-capitalist. Post-capitalist, where you transition into a society where there is no privately owned property. The government has nationalized everything. The government decides how you produce it, what we're going to produce. That's what he's saying. When did Bernie Sanders advocate for that? Bernie Sanders is not saying he wants to take away privately owned property. Not at all. What Bernie Sanders is saying is he wants to regulate the economy so that the inequality of wealth is not so big anymore. Okay, he wants to close the gap. All right, he wants to distribute wealth in a more fair fashion. All right, not where you have all the wealth going to a tiny minority and most people are left without that wealth, which is what has happened in America. Okay, during the last, actually not just America, most of the world. In the last 40 years, you have seen a sharp decline of the middle class. So this is not even a question of, oh, Bernie Sanders. No, this is statistical fact. Most of the wealth has gone to a tiny minority, the so-called 1%. This is not me talking. This is not Bernie Sanders talking. This comes from Oxfam. I'll link you the report in the description. Go read it for yourself. This is just fact. most of the wealth has shifted. And so Bernie Sanders wants to correct this inequality, this gap, which is very accentuated in the United States. Okay? That's it. Bernie Sanders didn't say he wants to transition to a post-capitalist society. Those are two completely different things. Oh my God. I mean, you could be on the right and still see that this is a wrong analysis. It's factually incorrect. Unbelievable. Anyway, funny thing that he never mentions, okay, and which is hardly ever talked about. You pay taxes on your income. You pay taxes on property. You pay taxes on your car. You pay taxes, a sales tax. The rich pay no taxes when it comes to stocks and bonds, okay? The richest 10% of Americans own 84% of all shares and stocks, okay? And this is untaxed. They pay no tax on this. It is the only form of property that is exempt from taxes. But he's not telling you that, is he? So you could be accumulating millions and billions, increasing your wealth, and never pay any tax whatsoever. And they won't tax stocks and bonds. You know why? Because most people don't have stocks and bonds. But most people do own a car. They or at least they strive to own a car and own property, and they have an income and they pay sales tax. So they'll tax all of those things. But stocks and bonds, no. The rich serve the rich, and the rich get richer. That's how it is. But he's not telling you that, is he? Honestly, anyone who likes economics, who likes history, please go and watch Dr. Richard Wolff, all right? Because this guy, he studied at Harvard, Stanford, Yale. He's an expert in economics, okay? He's a professor. He's the bomb. He's an expert at this, okay? He's really, really going to give you some great insight and knowledge on this topic. And it's insane. You know, I mean, Rand Paul, again, he's trying to do this whole virtue signaling, and he's trying to paint the 1% as these victims. He's trying to insinuate that they carry all the burden. No, this is garbage. I mean, even the audience on The View laughed at him, okay? And you really got to be pretty dumb to be watching The View. So if they could tell that this was bogus, he formulated it wrong. I think I know what he was trying to say. But even then, his argument that, most federal taxes, they come from us, we're paying them. Yeah, it doesn't hurt you as much as it hurts low-income people. You're still not paying your fair share. It's a question of percentages, of ratios, not a question of how many dollars. Do you understand? And if you look at this new graph that came out, this new economic study that was published a week ago, it shows you how tax rates, combined tax rates, have been going down for the rich decade after decade after decade. And who's left carrying the bill? The middle class. This is why you have a decline of the middle class. And another thing that I wanted to say before I forget, when he's talking about Denmark, that they have no minimum wage, conveniently, he doesn't tell you that a McDonald's worker in Denmark makes $20 an hour. Why? Because they have unions. They have unions. And America used to have very strong unions. And now we've seen a decline because they've been crushing them. You only have about 10% of workers today in the United States who are members of unions, which is half of what you had in the 80s. And at the end of World War II, about 30% of workers were unionized. Okay? That's what they want. The rich love that because then workers have no combined power. They have no say. And look how they're treating them at GM right now. Like, oh, you're going to protest? Yeah, we'll take away your health care. I mean, this is just another argument why you need unions and you need Medicare for all. So employers can't hold your health care hostage. I mean, this is unbelievable. But yeah, again, man, this is what I wanted to say about Rand Paul. It's that, you know, you want to criticize Bernie Sanders? Go ahead. You want to criticize socialism? Go ahead. But please specify which socialism you mean. There isn't one definition of socialism. It just isn't. I didn't decide that. It's just history. That's the way it is. So there you go.